Be very clear about what today's hearing is actually about. It's not about advocating for the best interests of the unborn or women. It's an attempt by Democrats on this committee to justify their radical pro-abortion agenda and efforts to establish a system of taxpayer-funded abortion on demand. I'm not exaggerating. Democrats passed legislation last year that would allow for unrestricted access to abortions to take place up until a baby is born. And they do so under the guise of hearings like this one being held right now using titles like examining harm to patients from abortion restrictions and the threat of a national abortion ban to perpetrate fear and achieve their far-left agenda. How many times have we heard Democrats say, and I'll quote, "Trust the science," until it has to do with acknowledging an unborn baby is a life? I guess I've heard about healthcare, and I have to, Dr. Wubbernhorst, if two lives go into a facility for medical care and only one comes out, half the patients only come out, is that successful healthcare?
Yes, sir. Thank you for your question. I would say that is not successful healthcare.
Right, and that's what happens. You have two lives that go into this setting. They have what the Democrats are calling a medical procedure, and it is, but then only one life comes out. I don't call that success. And I don't think anybody, and it's not radical to defend life. That's in our founding documents: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You can't have liberty and pursue happiness if you're not born, you're not life. Dr. Wubbernhorst, after conception, what can you tell us about the development of an unborn baby at, I'll say, some milestones? 10 weeks. I have a pin that says 10 weeks, a baby's feet is this big. What other milestones might you see for development of the baby after conception?
Sure. So I think that there are a number of very important milestones, even beginning very early, post-fertilization. Post-fertilization, and actually at the time of fertilization, there's actually a zinc spark that's emitted, and we know that the question as to whether the embryo, the zygote, is human is simply reflected in the fact that this individual has human DNA. It came of human parents. He or she came of human parents. Subsequently, the zygote develops into a blastocyst, which implants. That implantation process is accompanied by the start of the development of the placenta. That's when HCG is released. And then as time goes along, you have very early milestones. Primordial cells begin to develop in the heart as early as 4 weeks. But even before that, the embryo is already organizing himself or herself into different layers, different cell layers, which will give rise to different types of tissues. So by about 6 to 7 weeks, the central nervous system is already well along in development. The spinal cord begins to truly be developed. Fingerprints are already starting to form at 7, 8, 9 weeks. The fetal brain has already begun, and actually EEG activity, electrical activity in the brain, can be detected as early as 9 weeks, and possibly earlier as well. And so you have a number of these processes that are occurring in very, very early stages of pregnancy around the time that these unborn children are being aborted. We know, as I said earlier, and I just want to emphasize this, the fetus is a human being. It is not a dog. It is not a salamander. It is a human being. It is a human being that is achieving, through development, the completed form of the adult.
If I can ask a question, at what point in time can an unborn baby feel pain? How many weeks after conception?
Sure. So there's very excellent evidence that by 15 weeks, the mechanisms, and I don't want to get too technical here, but
So at 15 weeks, I guess would be a part where they can start to feel pain?
Say it again, sir?
They could feel pain around 15 weeks?
Yeah, there's very good evidence, because, again, pain is a subjective phenomenon, but there's very good evidence that the structures that can perceive pain are already in place. And this is recent research. People used to think that those structures weren't really in place until 24 weeks. But in fact, they are present earlier. The thalamus, the peripheral nervous system, and the early stages of the cortex, which is the
I mean, we tend to evolve through our entire life, and it starts at conception. And I remember when I was in 9th grade biology class, and I remember our biology teacher writing on the board, and it said sperm plus egg equals baby. I mean, that put it pretty simply. And I think that when we're talking the United States of America depriving life, if we're not going to protect someone's life, we're not protecting anything else of theirs. And I think it starts right here in what we recognize as life, and that begins at conception. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you, sir.